introduce yourselves to the audience, guys. This is three of you.
Yeah. So my name is Matthew Eickman. My brothers and I are running a company out of the Twin Cities area called Abra Kadabra Environmental Services. Been in business for about 20 years. I took the company over from my father-in-law, and we've slowly grown and added some people along the way. Wasn't for these two guys here, we definitely wouldn't be where we're at now, and they're just kind of a key part of the team and the culture that we've built till now that's really made a lot of our growth possible. So just appreciate you having us on, Franklin.
No, man, it's a pleasure. I've actually wanted to talk to you for a long time. The first time I actually saw you, we were at Paul Bello conference. I think you were there, correct? And I looked across the room, and you were in whose team?
So we had Seth and
Seth was on your team. I saw you guys over there. I said, oh man, I should go over there, but there was so many people I was talking to throughout the whole weekend, and I said I should talk to him, and I didn't know who you were, honestly, but I just saw you, and you stood out, and then you were sitting at a conference table at the last day, and everybody was asking, a couple of guys were asking me questions, and everybody was leaving, and I saw you with your bags packed, and I said, oh, maybe I should just sit down and talk to this guy. And then all of a sudden I start seeing your pictures, and I said, stupid of me, I should have talked to this guy. I mean,
we chatted a little bit. You probably don't remember. We had a lot going on, but
yeah.
That was a great conference. So
yeah.
I feel like we've interacted more than just that one time, but maybe not. Maybe it's just on Facebook over the past few years. I know I've consumed a lot of the content that you put out,
right,
and really appreciate the fact that you're doing that. There's a lot of really watered down sales processes that are put out there from a pest control content standpoint. So it's nice to see somebody that's coming at it with not a hidden agenda. You're just trying to get the truth and put things out there that help other operators. And
yeah,
I'm just really grateful for that, and I know a lot of other people out there are as well. So
yeah, I don't know if you got a better mic or if you can talk a little louder.
I'm kind of quiet. So
okay. Yeah, you can just scream. I'm Cuban.
I'll be as loud as we can here. My brother Andy has no problem being loud, so he'll be good. You might have voice for you. You might have to warm him up a little bit, but
no worries.
Yeah. So for today, a lot of what I heard from you earlier when we were chatting before we started recording, what you're talking a lot about culture and kind of getting a company, a pest control organization to that next level, right? So a few questions that I had for you is like, so are you speaking like, is this really for you and your organization? Is this something you've been struggling with, or is it a recurring theme or trend that you're hearing from the other operators that you interact with?
It's a huge, I've struggled with it. I come from corporate, but I was mostly in a sales position my whole life. I've never actually run a business. I managed several businesses, 10, 20 people operations, but never actually grew one. And the struggle that I've had, is with me, since I'm a salesperson, I struggle with if I go out and sell my butt off, I will have so much work that I don't have the people, the resources, because going from zero, I've already hired 2, and I have 2, and now we're growing. We're going to probably add 3 by the middle of next year. I'm at that point where I'm hiring a salesperson full-time, because I know that what I'm going to need and the requirement of that growth. But for that person that has always been a technician, never been a service manager, was never a branch manager, never did sales, they're just technical people. They struggle really hard with wanting to grow. They want to grow, but then they're listening to what some people are telling them they have to do to grow, and it totally turns them off, because it is this, sell at any cost mentality, and then figure it out, and everything kind of, and I've seen companies that have grown like that, and I talked to the owners personally, and, you gotta, you gotta have a lot of, I guess, this narcissistic mentality to do that. And I just can't see myself as treating my techs like crap while the sales organization is just getting all the accolades and the people are just like, we can't keep up, nobody's training us, we're just alone here, we don't know. And I've seen that kind of growth, and I don't ever want to go that, because I'm more of a technical guy. My original background is in tech, actually, and as a programmer and as an IT guy. So I tend to focus more on that technical side, understanding the sales part, and grasping the business as I go along. Those are but most people are mostly technical, and most of the people that I talk to that have a large company don't seem to understand going from that just tech side to over to the entrepreneurial side.
Gotcha. So it's really, I think the fact that you kind of just name that and kind of put it into words is pretty important, because a lot of people don't actually ever identify that. And I think that alone, like understanding that being the best at killing bugs does not necessarily mean you're going to grow a good business.
Right.
And so I started off, I come from a biology background, so I can really nerd out with the best of them when it comes to the pesticides, the bugs, like overall, just the biology and behavior of what it is that allows us to have a business, right? But so my first couple of years after I took the company over, I dove into learning that, because I didn't have a lot of that groundwork. I pretty much learned enough to pass the test. And then I learned a lot of the wrong ways to do pest control, right? So it was thanks to guys like you and other resources out there that I started to learn the better practices and the better ways to service your customer and take care of the pest problems that we have. But what I've found is it's a really deep rabbit hole. You can go forever and just keep going and going and going. And at the end of the day, does the customer even care? Like, does the customer care, like, how many rodent stations I put out, or like if I pre-bait, or do they care about any of that? And the answer consistently just kept coming back, and it was no. Like, customer doesn't even know enough to know that they don't know what that is. And that alone, through working with Seth Garber and some other mentors that I have, like, I really came to that realization that the more technically inclined I became, the less business minded I was, right? And so it's two very different trains of thought. Like, do you have to understand what you're doing in the service you're delivering, the product you're selling to your customer? 100%. However, as your company grows, you don't have to always be that guy that's thinking that way, right? You need somebody thinking that way, but you also need somebody driving the ship and growing the company. And so the transition that I saw in myself was really from getting to the point where I knew that we had a top product in the market and it was sellable to the right consumer. Then from there, the volume kind of, like, the time really forced my hand, and I learned some of those things along the way. I learned that if I was going to be able to make sure all the bills get paid on time and we can hire people and our marketing's dialed in, how do I have time to actually go out and take care of a customer? Like, the time commitment, there's only so much time there. So as you grow, understanding, like, the roles that an organization has and what the people in those roles not necessarily should be doing, but what they should be thinking about, right? Because it, like, the thoughts kind of drive any of those behaviors after the fact. And, like, I'm in a position now where Phil's our director of operations. He runs all the day-to-day technical stuff. Andy's running a lot of our sales and growing a lot of our sales staff. So his focus is on the sales there, right? And then my focus is less into the business and more to the outside of the business, looking at where can we be in 12 months. So for those operators that are going from one technician to two technicians, or a technician and adding a CSR, like whatever that may be, like understanding that, hey, I'm the business owner. Nobody's going to care as much as I do. So in order, like, in order to be fair to them, if they could do 100% as well of a job as I could, they just own a pest control company. They wouldn't work for anybody. So it's not fair of me to require anybody that I hire to be able to do 100% of what I can do in all those different areas. So one big thing for me was I started to change my my expectation from 100% of whatever I could do and whatever I would deliver on a particular process, and I started to think about it in terms of like 70% of whatever I could do. If that new employee can do that, they're probably doing a kick-ass job and probably better than the customer would ever think about or care about or even know. So that other 30% is just the little things that can elevate a service even more, right? And as a business owner, we can get caught in the trap of always kind of nitpicking and micromanaging and taking a lot of time. And these guys, being that they're my brothers, have experienced a lot of it. Like me bringing focus to something and wasting time that I could otherwise spend growing the company, talking about something that really doesn't matter that much. Is it there? Should it maybe be addressed? Yeah, but maybe they already got it figured out. And the fact that I'm thinking about it is just wasting 2 times as much company time now, because
Right.
I'm thinking about it and I'm creating a conversation with him, and he already talked about it with somebody and it was solved a week ago. So really, I'm not sure where this started. So I'm glad you started recording here, Franklin. But
Yeah, no, I mean that's extremely valuable, and looking at it on the macro, and for me it was, I've always had techs. It's just my company 7 years ago, we were a totally different company. To give you perspective of what I used to do, is I had a pest control business and I had a tech, and then we also had a landscaping business and I had a landscapers, and we had the home improvement section, and I had subcontractors that I dealt with to put up fences for my clients. We had a full property service company. And then the profits were all dwindling, and the only thing that was making money always more was the pest control. So after 7 years of trying that, I said, screw it, I'm done. I sold off all those. I mean, I literally lived off a year just selling off assets and built the pest control side. But my always was that I started out in lawn and ornamental. And it's very demanding here, unlike a lot of the mistakes I made. These are the mistakes I made, that I focused so much on the lawn and ornamental and being such a high-end ornamental company that it literally slowed down my growth, because I felt like I was diluting my product if I sold something less. And it was a mental hurdle for me, because our landscapes, like we do, $20 million mansions on the beach. These people are like, yeah, they're like super high demanding, and I have to be there sometimes every other week for these clients. This is not your typical, we'll show up every quarter business. And then I started getting into I need to grow, so I need to do GHP. Never did GHP, general pest control. And then 7 years in, I said, if I have to grow, I got to do the GHP. And now I know I have to do termite, and getting that. But then we hit a crisis, and, a personal crisis in my life, and everything got slowed down. So the challenges for us I don't know how to hire. I never actually took an ad out on Indeed and brought a person in for an interview. I never did that. And I had to learn that I hired the wrong people for 5 years.
But what you just did was learn, though, right? So
yeah.
So I guess like a few things that I would ask, and this is something that these guys have experienced a lot of, like 3 questions. Like, one, what are your goals, right? Because like talking about any of this other stuff, doesn't even make sense until an individual identifies what their real goals are. Maybe their goals can be achieved with 2 to 3 technicians, right? And they just are in the right market to have both the customers that can hit their goals with the pest company, right? But maybe their goals are more like mine, where I'm trying to grow a massive company. We're trying to build a dynasty over here, right? And it's just starting like one market at a time. Right now, we just happen to start in the Minneapolis Twin Cities market. So, like, each person's goals are different, right? And then I think the next question that 2 of my favorite questions of people. One, like, Franklin, what would you say you are the best at? Like,
Probably training and teaching.
Okay. So what would you say is the thing you're probably the worst at?
Probably the worst at would be
harder.
That's a harder question. Yeah. I would say a lot of the day-to-day mundane stuff drives me insane. You know, the minutia. I tend to not be so much of a micromanager. So a lot of that drives me insane. I would say next to teaching and training would be sales, would be my strongest. You know, that would be my next thing. But the hiring definitely is getting. I have a hard time dealing with low-level skill personally, as an individual. So when I have to hire a technician or people that just can't grasp, you know, and I'm very patient in my teaching and training, but like when I had the landscape business, for give you an example to bring it into context, everybody that's in the landscape business is usually an immigrant or very uneducated. They don't have, you know, it's just, I just got to get this job done. And that's what I found hardest developing a business like that, because I had to hire people that just, you know, didn't care to learn anything. They just, you know, put a blower in my hand and I'm happy, but you know, these are big gardens and you need to learn. So to me, those are a lot of things that slow me down.
Okay. So the things, whatever you're the best at, sales, training, spend as much of your time doing that as possible.
Right.
And for each individual, all the listeners, like, understanding yourself and what you're good at is incredibly important for you to be able to grow. Because if you don't understand that, human nature kind of has this program to work on the craft that we're not good at and try to be better at it.
Right.
Really
I battled that for a long time and I got over it.
Well, because we work against ourselves, right, Franklin? Like, we're working from a place of we don't have the right tools to do the job, but we really want the job to be done. So we try to force it, and what happens? We become incredibly frustrated, and then it becomes not fun to go to work because you're working on the wrong stuff. But individuals, and as you grow, identifying these same kind of things within the individuals you have allows you as a manager or a leader to really be able to know, like, how to not teach them, but how does this person learn, and what's the stuff I want them to learn. Because you can teach your ass off, Franklin, but if that person who you're teaching isn't actually uptaking that and synthesizing it, it doesn't matter, right? So, like, the EQ portion, or the understanding of the people, is so important when growing a company. And we're blessed to have parents that really helped us grow that and really helped us understand that the world doesn't revolve around us, and there's a lot of stuff going on out there that if we don't really think about it, people aren't going to want to be around us because of our lack of thinking about those things. So like, we come from a family that has really high EQ, so that's really natural to us, and these other things that kind of helped us all fall into our own roles, like, are just the natural things that we do well. We just double and triple down on those things and find the people that are good at the things that we're not good at, and let them fill that void. So, like, a growing pest company, there's really different stages. Like, you can get to like $600,000 to $800,000 and like be making a bunch of money, not have too many employees, not have too much overhead, and a lot of companies will stay there, right? And then the next step is you have to blow through 1 million. You got to get to 1.2, 1.3, and that's really hard. Like doing that is hard, and a lot of companies don't really make that happen, because now what happens to the individual who's in there, they're making less money and they're working harder and they have more stress, right? So I was blessed to like have my brothers like help me grow through that and have a great team of people, that made it smoother than some. But understanding like just what a pest company looks like at different sizes, I think is something that a lot of people don't spend time on.
There's not a lot of people talking about it in reality.
Right.
Everybody's talking, you're either a big multi-million-dollar, company, or you stay a solo operator. Everything in between, I know, people that follow me that have, mostly are the single operators. I would say probably 80% of people that listen to me are the single operators.
Well, why do you think that is?
That is?
Yeah, why do you think that those are the people that follow you?
Mostly because when I started my podcast for first 6 years, I focused on the technical side of training, because that's what I'm really passionate about. And so I built a following of a lot of solo operators who, or technicians. I mean, I have a huge following of technicians that work for companies that nobody's training, because I focus so heavily on the training part of what I did. Through my journey and through my experience, I decided to start talking about the growth pain that nobody was disguising. Nobody wants to really say, oh yeah, this part is really painful. And this is how painful it was for me to get, to when I lost, going through 7 technicians and losing and learning every time of what that guy stole, and that guy was stealing hours, and that guy was this, and you learn, because I think I just have this thing that I think everybody is genuinely and nice, and I'm trusting about everything you tell me until then you can prove that you can't be trusted. And then that's where I draw the line. And then I'm like, oh my God, he's an a-hole, and because I'm just nice like that. And everybody thinks that, oh, but I give you enough rope to hang yourself so that I'm not, but then when I have to cut it off, I have to cut it off. So to me, it was the people that are following me now are the people that want to grow. They're getting to that next step, but they're like, again, just purely technical. They were never a branch manager. I see a lot of things that I see in a lot of people who grew companies. Their DNA plus their background allowed them to grow at a level that most people will say, well, how does he grow like that and I can't? And I said, but you got to understand, man, that guy was a salesman, and then he was a branch manager, and then he was a regional manager. He understood the pest business where you and I didn't, because we didn't come from that. I came from technical sales, and I came from corporate sales, and selling contracts for a living, and had to learn. So I think that people got frustrated. I started seeing the frustration. And I said, why don't I just talk honestly about that journey, about what it's really like sometimes for a lot of us, and then bring on people who've actually grown and start, going through the different phases, because I know that going from 2 technicians to 3 technicians to 6 technicians, it's a totally different company.
It is. So honestly, you talked about like the pain points earlier. Anybody's experienced pain through the whole growth of our company, it's probably this guy over here. He's literally been with us since it was just my father-in-law and myself. He was our first hire outside of that. So I mean, from your, this is something I've never heard, by the way. So from your perspective, Andy, is there like a difference in like the different size companies that Franklin was just kind of outlining there? Like, is it?
Yeah, I mean, so let me introduce myself first, since I didn't get a chance to do that earlier. I'm Andy Eickman. I'm Matt's brother. I've been with the company for 6 years before Matt took over, I started working with the company. So I'm kind of actually the first hire. So been there since it was just him and I, all the way up to where we're at now. Been working with him ever since. So I guess people that you have to decide if this is something you actually want to do. So just because you love being a technician and you love doing that stuff doesn't mean that you're going to like doing anything else that involves, like, a lot of guys that are techs just should be techs because that's what they want to do. They don't actually necessarily want to run the business side of it because that's not going to be what they're good at. They're not going to enjoy it, and it may be too much for them to handle. So a lot of guys want to, I want to grow this company, I'm going to hire a technician, and maybe they leap into that a little bit too quick, and they hire somebody because they think it's it's just, I got to pay a salary, but it's not just a salary. It's a salary, and then you got to pay taxes on that, and then you got to pay if you're going to offer benefits and all of that stuff too. So that's something that we figured out the hard way. So he hired me, and I'm his brother, so it's different. It's like,
what did you start at as?
Part-time mosquito technician.
This man was running a mosquito route out of his Volvo.
I had a Volvo S60 sedan, and I had a fogger in the back seat of my car, or a mister, and I ran mosquito accounts during the summer out of my personal car. I'd slap a magnet on the door that said Abra Kadabra, and I was working. So like, most people don't go work for somebody and then do that kind of thing. So that's a pretty unique situation.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, you have to consider all the stuff that's involved in having employees, and even if that's something you want to do, like, because it's not just the employee, it's like everything that goes with that employee, and it's all that stuff that goes with the employee costs money, and all that stuff also costs emotional time. So you got to, because everyone's got feelings, so you're going to hire somebody, and they're going to be they might be a great worker until they feel like you wronged them, and they fly off the handle, and every time that they think that they've been wrong, they fly off the handle, and that's just, you got to worry which person you're getting every day, which you never know that until you hire them. So that's something you have to make that decision ahead of time. Do the research, figure out what's going to be involved if I'm going to add employees, and spend some time talking to other people that have interviewed people and know what are the right questions to ask. What are the right things to look for in a good employee? You're not always going to hire somebody that's going to be able to do everything on their own. The way I explain it is, when you hire somebody, and you just have to assume that they don't know anything. Yeah. So every time you tell them to do something, don't assume that they understand how to put those two lines of thought together. Yeah. Just assume that they don't know anything. So everyone's dumb. Just assume that they're dumb. Nobody knows anything.
Let me just, because that's a great point, but so most of the time when I'm talking to solo guys, they're wanting to hire somebody that already has the experience, because what they want to do is they want to abdicate. They don't want to manage. They want a ready-made tech that comes, and the problem is they come from a company with so many bad habits, and you inherit those bad habits, and then they don't know how to, because they can talk a good game. They understand the terms and the lingos and all that, but when they actually go to it, like, I had a guy understood everything about IPM, and then he would throw dust underneath the cabinets. Like, a customer came and says, he was here 5 minutes. None of what you told me he did. I go out there, and there's Cymexa dust spread out all over the bathroom. But this guy understood everything. And he spent a month with me. And then when he went out, he just did what he wanted to do. And he was just ripping off the client. So I said, that those are the pain points that when you guys started, you're his brother. I seen a lot of that too. Hey, we'll hire the family. It's kind of like a little easier because, I know him. I grew up with him. I know I can trust him, that kind of deal. And then some of these guys are basically bringing in their brother, their cousin, everybody. It's a family business because they just don't trust anybody. That's so
to that's a really good point you bring up. So I think that it's really valuable, and I think it's something that's super special about the pest industry is the fact that it does kind of create a lot of those family businesses, right? Because, like, the opportunity me and my brothers have to work together is like super special, right? Like I get to spend a lot of my week with guys that I love,
Right.
right? And that to me is like a lot of what drives me, and that time spent with the people I care about is important. So that's kind of what makes pest control really really special, right? But I think where people go wrong is they skip over like the hard conversation before that happens, right? They skip over the, hey man, like I appreciate you wanting to do this. I love the shit out of you, and it's really important to me that no matter what happens here, like if we get to the point where this isn't working, like this relationship here is more important than any amount of money or anything like that, right?
Right.
So just start, and I started this off on the same, pretty much the exact same talk track for both conversations with these guys and the other friends and family members that I've hired is making sure that starting point is it's clearly defined, right? Everything can't be really fluid. When things are fluid, there's I thought this, he thought that, and then there's disagreement. Right. So one thing that hiring friends or hiring somebody that has experience or hiring your family members does is there's a level of trust that's kind of assumed there. Kind of like you had with your technician, Franklin, like you trusted him because of whatever his resume said. And the trust is important, but the part we don't think about with trust is how quickly that can be lost.
Right.
And that should be something that's pretty defined as well, especially when it comes to service or expectations. Like talking about those things is hard because you got to talk about like if somebody does something stupid or not ethical, then this. But people don't want to talk about that because they think you're assuming that about them. So getting that out of the way is something I kind of learned the hard way working with my father-in-law before I took the company over. And it's something that anytime I meet somebody that has a partner or is going into business with a family, I kind of feel obligated to have that conversation with them because like there's no easier time during that relationship to have that conversation than at the beginning. It just gets more and more muddied and more complicated, right? So if you can do that, I firmly believe that hiring people within your circle of influence, your family members, your friends, their family members and friends, allows for an organization to find real quality individuals at a faster rate than most others. Because as human beings, we have a level of trust that you build slowly over time, and that's what we try to speed up in the interview process. But it's really hard to do and know all those things. Right. So when you have somebody who's known somebody for 5 or 10 years, that person's usually a really, really solid person or just an absolute narcissist, one of the two.
Right.
And as much as we want to think the people that are crappy are narcissists, that's not always the case. Like if you can hire somebody that one of your employees has known for 5 years and they vouch for them, it's usually a really good freaking guy. And if you can create a good like recruiting program or like if you help us hire somebody, you both get bonused after 90 days. That's a fantastic thing that a lot of small companies don't do, but it would allow them to trust that person that you're hiring that's changing their life to come and work at your company. And it allows you as the operator or the operator that's there to really let that person do what they came there to do. If you don't trust them, it doesn't matter what the hell they're going to do. You're going to find something that's wrong. Right. So it's not like a lot
of that's the other extreme. I just don't trust anybody. And therefore,
that's kind of what it is. Cause like people don't want to be managed. They want to be trusted that they can do their job.
Right.
Right. And that's something that I learned from our grandfather, but like understanding people is so important to be able to grow a company.
Right.
And if you don't have those skills, if somebody doesn't, I'm not speaking to you here, Frank.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. No, I get it. But that's cool because I like being interviewed for once on my show. No, this is really good, bro. This is really good. I love it. I really do. I mean, I'm really into it.
You're not walking away like, why the hell did I bring this guy on?
No. I'm absolutely loving this. Believe me. Because the what you guys bring to the table is very rare that I find. That I, from people that have actually grown a business, and that I see what you post all the time and your consistency and everything that you've done over time. So this is extremely valuable because a lot of the guys would, nobody would look at you guys three sitting at a bar and say, these guys are pest control moguls. Okay. you just look like regular guys who are just, nice, kind, regular guys. And everybody's got the wrong attitude of what it's like to be a pest control business owner because they're all thieves, and you hear the comments from the technicians, everybody's just money grubbing, and it's just not the case because I still remember that I still pay my technicians more sometimes than I make as an owner, and it's just par for the course.
That's kind of what we sign up for as owners, right?
Yeah.
Like we can never, ever expect somebody else to care as much as we do.
Right.
It's bullshit. Like, it's not their company. Why would they?
Yeah.
Like, and the fact that a lot of operators think, oh, he works for me, that's wrong too. Like, I work for these guys and all the other employees that are here. It's my job to serve them, and if I'm not understanding them and they can't drive the initiatives I have, that's on me.
Right.
I'm barking up the wrong tree then. So, like, the human component to it is something that, working with family allows you to kind of cut through a lot of the BS. You get to cut through that stuff because you know each other super, super well, right? But what I completely forgot where I was going with that. I was trying to have a segue into Phil talking finally.
Yeah. Well, let me go back to him because we left off at him, hauling around a sprayer from the back of his Volvo, and how did you guys? How did you go from that, going from you to who was the next person in the company, like an employee after him?
Give him the tour.
Okay. So I wasn't even full time when I started doing that. That was like, I had a full-time job and I was working second shift and I did this during the day.
Got it.
So I was doing that. And then after that summer, I transitioned into a full-time role. And then we hired one of our family friends, Jason, we've known for over 12, 15 years now, long time. So, and he still works for us now. He's one of our pest technicians to this day. He started out with us doing wildlife work. So doing, catching squirrels and raccoons and that kind of stuff, and climbing on roofs. And he's transitioned into pest control over the last couple of years. And then we had Casey at part-time, who's been a family friend also. She's been in and out of some different roles.
Everyone's gonna get lost in the name.
Fair enough. We got somebody in the office. She was in and out for a while, part-time. And then we hired another pest guy, and then we hired another wildlife guy, all within about a year. And then after that, it kind of just steamrolled. So we hired.
How did you guys? Because this is vital. We tend to skip over 2 to 3 hires and think this just happened, but the marketing and the sales and the things that had to go into place.
Yeah. So I think you have to, like, an important person on your team is someone that's not necessarily most people don't think of all the time, and I think it's a CSR.
So important, dude. That should be most people's first hire, honestly.
Yeah.
Right now, that's where I'm at right now, where I'm hiring. But the person is a CSR with 8 years of pest control sales experience in the field, and owned his own business and decided, he was going to put that aside. And that's been my, and he speaks both languages, which for us is vital. Because this market is 65% Hispanic. People don't get that. So to me, that's my next step to my, that I see to be able to get my growth, is get somebody who's fully devoted to sales. And I'm still doing the admin stuff because I've got that a lot of everything is pretty much automated. But that I see as my next big thing to my growth, is getting that CSR salesperson in, because we're inbound sales, we're not outbound sales.
It's probably the most important thing. Like, having another technician is great, but then you're still having to handle all of that minutia, all the incoming calls, responding to emails, handling customer complaints, that kind of stuff. When really you should be focused on like running the company, or maybe even at that point running a route, when you can have someone that can answer phone calls for you and do the sales process and knows how the pest control plan works, and that's their only job. They can focus on the customer service experience. Then you're not missing phone calls of incoming work either. So that's a lot of missed opportunity.
So the reason that first, I think that was,
actually, I think
we hired
Casey
before we hired
Jason. You're
So
right.
The reason we made that transition was, I'm out inspecting roofs and attics, and I got customers calling me trying to look up stuff on Gorilla Desk while I'm on my phone in my attic, or in an attic. And I had this epiphany, like, this is not fair to this customer who's spending a lot of freaking money to have me here inspecting, to have a portion of my attention distracted. Right? And then it pissed me off even more, because I knew I paid for that phone call to come in too. And I wanted that one because I needed it. Like, I'm trying to grow my company. So, like, looking to hire a technician rather than somebody to just answer the phone, like, you can, even if it's just like someone answering the phone, they don't have to know anything. Like, customers will be better served just by somebody being on the other side.
Right.
And that's really important. So, like, that happened, and then things kind of snowballed quickly. So part of the hiring that happened is I created a whole bunch of new things within the company. Here's mosquito and tick work. Oh, we sold too much of it. Who's going to do that so we can continue to grow?
Me.
He came in with a game plan. He's like, I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm an operations guy. I don't talk.
Exactly. You can see the personalities here. So somebody to answer the phones. Like, we're in a business of customer enters the market when it's too late and the stuff's already there. They're not entering like, I want to proactively prevent the rodents at my house. No, they're not that smart. They usually call us after it's already in their kitchen, crawling on their stove and all this stuff, right? So the fastest way for a consumer to go from I have this issue to pest control operator comes out, in their mind, is a phone call. And so whoever answers first wins, pretty much. Even if you suck at the process, like, you still win time and time again. So I think, and this might be something that maybe you tried earlier on, but that alone is key to growth. Like, if you can hire a part-time person, you have 20 hours of new sales opportunities that you didn't have, or 40 hours of new sales opportunities, plus whatever all the other stuff they can do there is. And then, so back to the process, it was CSR, wildlife tech, because I added wildlife, and oops, we need to hire somebody. Here's Jason. And then pest control tech.
And a wildlife tech right on top of each other.
It escalated quickly. And maybe that's another point for people, is like, if you're going to grow, like, it kind of has to happen like this. Because if it happens slow, it's real painful. And you got to go through a lot of that stuff. And really, at the end of the day, even if you hire somebody really bad and they're there for 6 months, but they help you grow your company and serve the customers that you have during that time, that's not always a bad thing. Right.
Yeah, a lot of guys, and that's not acceptable. Like, I want somebody that is going to be with me for a long time, and it's like, I just don't see that as reality.
That's my heart too, right? Like, I don't ever want anyone to ever leave.
Right.
I care too much about people, and if somebody does leave, like, I take it really personal. Like, I came short somewhere, right? Like, and that's not fair to operate, right? Like people got their own crap in their own life and stuff
Right.
comes up, but understanding that's important, that like somebody's life doesn't revolve around your business just because
Right.
yours does. I can't tell you how many times I've texted these guys at like 9, 10 o'clock at night, like talk about work shit, just because like I don't think about anything else. And sorry for cussing.
No worries.
So what happened after that was we bought a building, and then entered Phil, right? So Phil came in, and I think you were our second wildlife tech at that point. Is that right?
Well, Jason was transitioning to Pest, and you came in to take that role.
It was a gong show, dude. There's so much going on, like such a lack of organization. I came short in so many different areas.
That's something that people don't talk about either, is that every company from the outside looks like they have their shit put together, and nobody does. Like it's so growth is chaos.
All right.
We like to keep it ghetto around here, I guess.
That's all right, bro. It's cool.
It's just funny. We thought like Phil wasn't gonna get to talk because we completely lost it.
Yeah, I know. That's it, bro. We got to cut this short. System broke. No, he's like, don't worry, man. I was gonna bring him up anyway. But so we were talking about, the outer appearance is that everything is, oh, you guys are growing, you're crushing it, it's awesome, you're adding one new technician every 6 months, and it's really managed chaos. It's
literally. First month I was here, honestly, felt like I was kind of just like thrown in there. I'm not gonna lie.
Exactly.
right.
But I mean, I trust my brother, so he's not gonna put me in any situation that I can't handle. So
Right.
It was a lot of new stuff for me because I came from doing something completely different, operating forklift in a lumber yard for almost a decade. So then
Wow.
moving this into something that was totally new to me. So I'm a kind of type of person that wants to understand all the stuff before I just start doing it.
All this.
I like to overanalyze a little bit sometimes, but I didn't have the opportunity to grasp or gain all the knowledge before I started.
Right.
So it was kind of learn as you go, and it took a little bit of adjustment on my end, but
You did it.
it was hectic. I mean, I was going and checking mouse traps 3 days into working here, and I had no idea what I was really doing at that point. But it was
The traps are still empty after a week. You forgot to put the bait in there.
yeah, exactly. Like, what's going on?
I didn't know I was supposed to put the bait.
Exactly. But no, I had to learn extremely fast, and
Right.
it was a good thing for me because it helped me grow through some of the stuff that I needed to grow personally through. So it helped open me up and be a little bit more vocal than I have ever been in my life, really.
Right.
But it was hectic. But we hired a guy named Mike Tucker, who he started about a month after me. He's early 60s. I rode with him for like the next 2 months after that, and I literally learned anything I could possibly think of wildlife related riding with that guy, and it
It's like a walking wildlife handbook.
yeah
Right.
really helped me out, not gonna lie. Like all the little tricks and tips and stuff you would never think about, he had some way of doing it or a little tool that could help it work out better. And
Right.
so it was really just getting around the proper people to help give you that knowledge. And I think that's important when people want to learn something or get into something new. Getting the people around you that are doing that so you can learn something from it helps that transition moving into something totally different. But
Yeah. Let me ask you, how did he fit in though with three guys that were trying to figure this out?
Mike Tucker,
Yeah.
oh, he ran his own one-man show for almost 40 years.
1986.
Yeah.
He started in
This man,
1986.
this man, first of all, I think higher of him than most other human beings in the world. He's just got that type of moral ethic, and I think anyone who's ever really interacted with him thinks the same thing. And
Right.
So I met him through some wildlife stuff, and he really helped establish a lot of what the wildlife industry is here in Minnesota, from like a lawyer standpoint. That's not the right term, but that's what
Yeah.
we go.
Legislation.
And that's one. And he was brought on really to create opportunity for people to learn, and for me to just be able to spend more time with the guy, because he was that good for culture, right?
Yeah.
Having an individual like that who's patient and understanding, and can talk up and down the technical side of things with anybody, right? But still comprehends I don't think there's a better person that we could have plugged in there than
at that time
than Tucker. So like a lot of the growth on our wildlife division was he was a major part of that, and he helped us kind of orchestrate that. So yeah, shout out to Mike Tucker. Love you, Tuck. But so like he brought on it, and I think because that's how Phil learns a lot, created that opportunity for Phil to take leaps and bounds forwards, and like he's been pushed probably more than anybody else here at Abracadabra, just because he had to grow in a lot of different ways that like talking to people wasn't necessarily a strong suit.
Right.
Leading people wasn't necessarily a strong suit because he had to talk to people. So like he's grown a lot, but it all happened so fast, man. Like it's really just like kind of a blessing and a curse. Like for me, like I get the cart in front of the horse 9 times out of 10, right? I see it. Yeah, so like I see opportunity and I just go with it, right? And by the time it fails, or I figure out it's gonna fail, I've got it so far that it can't fail sometimes. You know what I mean? So like that part of the process where it's like you don't need to understand everything about it. You can put people around you that understand it. You can pay them. Like in a business, like that's the one thing that we have that's leverageable, right? The time is limited. All these things are limited, but literally like the cash as it comes in, like we're supposed to spend that. Like, and when we spend it, it helps us move the needle forward if we spend it on the right things. So one thing that I've done, and I kind of force these guys to be part of as well, is like when we don't know something, when we're trying to learn something, we understand that time is not something we're willing to spend a lot of on it.
Yeah.
So we invest other things, money, other resources. Like the financial component is something that's more leverageable for a small business than time. So when you use that, and you're willing to maybe make less money, but because you made less money, now you created a whole training process so you can onboard technicians faster. So now next year you make more money, but you have to be willing to take a step back to go forward. And because so many small business owners are just freaking control freaks and perfectionists.
What you said is so counterintuitive to fail quickly. I mean, I had to learn, but I've always been they're trying to hold on a second. I got somebody trying to log on. And he's gonna have to get it because I have it with my friend. Don't report. Where he's my technical side of everything, and that's Eric. He's the one that does all my podcasts and video editing. Like I don't do that stuff anymore. Yeah, so I've been but I've always been a sink or swim kind of guy, and I got to learn sometimes to slow myself down for my people, because they can't handle that. And that's the hardest part, because I'm okay. Like, look, I don't have to know everything. I just need to know like X amount, and then let's just move forward. and screw it, if we fail. And a lot of people around me can't handle that.
But then what needs to happen a lot of is somebody has to have the time and focus to dedicate towards it, right?
Right.
Because what I've done is exactly what you just described, is have too many damn ideas, and now I have the same amount of people with the same amount of time that's limited, and one of the ideas doesn't happen.
Right.
And now there's this why, I'm over here we should have been able to do this, but realistically there's no freaking way we should have been able to do that.
Right.
So understanding that is really important, Franklin. I think that that's pretty high EQ that you can identify that, but then it's just figuring out not what your business needs or what a particular process needs, but what does that person need that you hired to feel really, really comfortable at your business and feel like you really, really care more and impact them on a deeper level than hey, you're gonna get a paycheck every other week. That's what we do here. You come here, you do this stuff, and I just give you money, and that's a really dry relationship.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody wants to be part of. So being that some of my first hires were my brothers, it's kind of hard to have that type of relationship with anybody, and then they interact in a way that's very similar to how I do, and they take a really high level of ownership in the company.
Right.
Then they don't own any of it. But there's a lot of opportunity, and that's what they own. They own that opportunity, and they get behind that because they know what that can do for them and for their families, and they understand what that can do for the other people that are here at our company for their families. And we feel a sense of obligation to all the people that have made that commitment. And I think that what I've seen, and you might have seen something pretty similar, Franklin, is some business owners or small pest control operators, they have the sense of entitlement, that person owes them something because they're working here. When in reality, it's not that. And if you don't care more about somebody, realize how much you owe to them because the opportunity they.
Sometimes I've always felt that that's been my detriment, but I feel like most of the time I'm mostly ministering to people in their lives, and it feels like that's your downfall. But they realize that I just don't want to be any other way. I just don't want to. I don't want to harden and say no because I've had employees that have had so many personal problems they couldn't function at work, and I stuck by them for 9 months while they were not. And at one point I said, look, you're not even functioning at all as a person. At that point I had to make that decision. But, even him would meeting after meeting would why do you even care? This is a guy who had a daughter and a wife and, responsibilities. And he's but he was battling so much stuff in his personal life. Yeah. So I think that, with my employees now, I mean, that's always the way I've managed people, just out of who I am. I don't think I have to really work hard at that one. It's just easier, but it tends to, when I have to fire that guy, I didn't sleep. I was a wreck.
So on that vein, I think when you have to, so a lot of people when they hire new employees, they don't think about setting expectations and setting what's expected, what you can and can't do. They just hire them and they think, okay, well, they're going, they're rocking. They don't think about all of the what if situations.
Right.
So doing that ahead of time can avoid that kind of stuff, because then you can say, okay, well, when I hired you, we said this, you signed a contract for employment with us, and it says, you have to show up for work, you have to do this, you have to do this.
Right.
Then it takes the onus off of you, because then you're not the bad guy anymore. It's in the paperwork there that they signed. They knew what they were doing. Something happened. So it may sound heartless to do that, but that makes it easier on everybody.
Yeah, that's what I've done with an employee manual, where day one, we literally sit down and say, this is what's going to get you fired.
Yeah, because then it's not there's no feelings involved with the decision. It's really black and white. It says, okay, well, you did this. This is what happens. It's not oh, well, you missed a bunch of work, but it doesn't say anywhere that you can't miss work. So then you're firing them because you think that they haven't worked enough, but they didn't know that they couldn't miss that many days.
Right.
So like there's this round and round circle of communication or lack of communication that leads to those kind of feelings.
Yeah, people, small business owners want every employee to read their mind.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to think, because this, I have one guy that I'm dealing with is this, bro, but why is it that people don't understand this, bro? You're expecting them to read your mind. Yeah. You don't want to sit down and write a policy manual because your ADD is so bad that all I care about right now is I need to make more money because I got to do this.
You can pay someone money to make just tell them what you need. I need this, this, and this in there, and they'll make it up for you and give you like 4 different setups for it. And then you just make a decision. If that's what's holding people up, that's
but that's the overthink, because it's like, well, nobody understands my business and how I do anything. And
honestly, like, so Phil's brain is we're not going to do that until I understand all of it, right? So because I don't allow that to happen all the time, like, do you have any thoughts on that, Phil? Like I want to understand all this before I do it, but you don't actually have the time to understand it all. You just have to do it.
Yeah. Like, what are you looking for?
Like, just for you to talk some more, man. Really, that's what I'm good at.
Well, I mean, Matt's always been a fire, ready, aim guy. Right. What my dad has always said since I can remember. Fire, ready, aim. It's just who he is. I'm the guy that sits and waits, and I'll aim for like an hour and a half.
Yeah. And
then the target's gone. But
because you're thinking you're gonna get that perfect shot if you just sit there enough and get it 95% or 99 until
exactly. And what Matt does is he doesn't really allow me to do that, so it makes me have to make decisions at a little bit faster pace, which is, in reality, it's the most important thing, is that you're making the decision. Decisions need to be made, and at the end of the day, my job is to make those decisions. Right. So he decides we're going to do insulation stuff. I got to figure out how we got to make that happen. And I may have taken a little bit longer to make it happen than you would have liked, maybe, but I think there's some rocking, and we're making.
You guys temper each other, like you come in.
Well, let me ask you this: would you have been comfortable doing this same job for somebody else, but because you trust your brother, you do it? Or because I mean, it's like I got guys who are like, no, until I absolutely feel comfortable, and it's like, man, you're sending me out to do this, bro, and I don't even know what I said, bro. When you get there, you just call me. It's super simple. I'll walk you through it, and you're gonna be fine. And they're like the whole time, bro, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, and the customer's gonna think I'm stupid. I says, bro, the customer knows less than you. Why are you worried? They don't know anything, So it's like, and they're fine after that. But they're that kind of personality. My brother-in-law was like that. He works for me, and he's like, he is really young too, so he's like really insecure about everything. But he had to learn that, when you get there, I'll tell you what's going to happen, because if I start telling you along the way, you're just going to dread it the whole way down there, and you're going to forget half of it.
Yeah, and there's two sides to that too, because when you work for a family member or work with a family member, that family member leans on you harder, because they know that they can expect more out of you, right? And you trust them more than you would trust anybody else, knowing that they're not going to let you down. So like that dynamic, you don't really get unless it's like somebody you've known for as long as you've had siblings. So like the same kind of time, you don't get that relationship from somebody you just hire. That's something that you have to build from a previous relationship. Hiring people that I know there's a lot of stigma behind that, or a lot like don't hire family. It's horrible to work with family. It's horrible to work with your friends. And I don't have any of that experience.
Right.
Working like one of our employees is one of my friends from college that I've known for 15 years.
Right.
So he worked with us. He's been one of our longest employees. Josh's been with us for like 3 years now. Almost 4 years? 4 years. 4 years now. So We've never, I mean, had disagreements, but it's never affected our friendship. And if anything, it's made closer friends. And he's bought into the company because we take care of him, and it's just like a mutual thing. So our longest employees are the people that were friends before they worked for us,
Right,
or related to us.
so just people know how many employees you got now.
21, 22. Trying to get a
22?
couple more. You know,
22, yeah.
Okay,
We need
it's like,
4 more.
Is it that many? Hey.
We need like.
do you feel it's easier doing what you do now, or are you just pushing yourself? And I know Matt is pushing himself to do the next big thing, and I guess he's comfortable in that environment. A lot of people are like, no, after 20 employees, after 10, that's it. That's all I can emotionally, I guess, because it is mostly emotional more than once you understand the mechanics, I guess. I mean, how do you look at that?
Well, at this point, the focus is different. So like what I was doing when we started versus what I'm doing now are like not even in the same scope.
And having people that can evolve through that process is hard to find. People don't like change.
I haven't had the same job for more than up until like a year ago, I didn't have the same job in this company for more than like 6 months.
See, I get very uncomfortable being stagnant and doing the same thing and just not growing, whether personally or, I mean, I feel like I got to be growing somewhere. It's either going to be emotionally
Why you're a business owner.
or personally, but I'm very uncomfortable. And my guys are like, you know, we're building out this new $60,000 vehicle. And he's like, don't worry, bro, I'll fill it. Once I know mentally that I got to fill that truck and that route, then, you know, but I get manic. Like my girlfriend's like, you're like a dog on a bone. You just don't let things go when you're wanting. And I just literally like get that tunnel vision manic until it's done.
It's not bad though. It's
Yeah.
like leveraging that.
But it's very hard for some people around me as an owner, for my family, my kids. Sometimes I'm like focused on this and they're like, dad. And I'm like gone, you know, and it's been, you know, that's just, and I've always been that since I was a kid. You know, it's not something that it's part of my DNA. I mean, I just can't turn that off.
And it's important to understand that, right? Because if you try to turn it off, you're probably not going to win, and
I'll be miserable
the whole time, right? So, the more we talk about stuff, the more I realize that it just comes back to the people involved and understanding each other, like disc profile assessments and different assessments like that to help you understand yourself, and then anybody you bring on are so freaking valuable.
Yeah.
And honestly, your employees aren't gonna like it. They're gonna be like, "This is some hokey shit."
No,
like,
we do it as a company. I started using Criteria Corp early on in developing my hiring strategy and my recruiting strategy.
Honestly, man, if you hire people with a servant's heart, with the desire to do right by people, you can teach them all the pest control stuff. Man.
Yeah.
And like if there's a interview question out there that you can find that helps you understand like how much somebody cares, I'd love to hear it, first of all.
Right.
But like that's like what it comes down to. Like people are who they are at an inner core, and they might polish it up and they might put on some layer of paint or whatever to distract you. At the end of the day, like what's in there is in there, and by ignoring it, you don't do anybody any good.
Right.
So part of who I am is like I really kind of just dive into understanding that, because then I know how to navigate around an individual and why maybe they think how they think, or that like how their brain works. Until you get how somebody's wired, it's hard to know like buttons push to get the outcome you want. You want to push the same buttons that get your outcome, but that's got different buttons over there. You got to push it. It's it's up, down, left, right, A, B, like whatever it is, it's different. So like another big evolution that I had was like understanding that people are different than me.
Right.
And also like what I say as a business owner, not how people hear it. They hear it completely different because how they hear is from a different perspective altogether. So until I understand that place that they're standing and what they're hearing, I'm always going to be asking myself, I don't get it. I don't get why they're doing that. And it wasn't until I really made that switch myself to really like figure my people out so that I could tailor the things I'm saying around them and have the right body language to not leave people feeling like I'm just a big dick. Because like I'm really direct with people, and it's part of what makes it easy to communicate with me, but it's also part of what like can ruffle some feathers sometimes. So if you don't understand how people hear you and you just keep putting the same message out there over and over and over, it can be really frustrating. And I think everyone here is pretty grateful that I made that transition because like I'm pretty intense when I get going into stuff, and it's not a fun place to be. People got to have fun at work, otherwise they find something.
How far were you in? Like, how many employees before you realized that and said, "Oh, let me do something about this"?
I think it was like 8.
8.
It was really, yeah. It was like right around that time. It was right around that time that I was going from being in the field and working with the customers, and then with my team simultaneously to removing myself and just having my team be that
right
in action, right?
Right.
And it's tough. Like if anybody grew during that time, it's me. And that, like, if you're not willing to change as an individual, you might not be able to grow a company, right?
Yeah.
And that's important to identify.
Yeah.
Like I changed stuff too much. Like I'm changing stuff just to change stuff because it's a new shiny idea that came up. And like just understanding like how much change you have to go through as an individual to be able to impact other individuals is something that I never really understood until I was in it and I had to figure it out. Just Matt, just 95% of the way there, and now he's got to learn what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean the mindset of where you're at as a solo operator, and the mindset you need to be at whatever next level is to be able to affect the change or whatever it is you want. A lot of guys are stuck on, well, this is how I am. I'm never going to change, and whoever wants to work with me has to accept that. You know, I throw wrenches across the room when I'm pissed. No, you know.
I don't know if this is a quote or a book or what it is, but I've heard it a lot, especially as I've been around more business owners. But what got you here won't get you there. And that is such a profound statement when you think about it in terms of business growth. Because in order for new renditions, new versions of your company to happen, like something's got to change, and it can't be you being the only one making that change. So until you invest in the people around you, and you build the leaders, and you help them understand those soft skills, those things that are important for the customer experience, for the employee business interaction in the first 30 days they have, until you really get to the feeling of stuff, because that's how people think is on emotion. It doesn't matter how much logic you throw at people until it's in terms of how they're feeling and in terms of what they're going to feel when you part ways and you're not with them anymore. Like you can really throw a lot of mud at the wall. It doesn't stick. Like people are emotional beings. And in growing a business, like, you know that from a sales standpoint, you know that from a customer service standpoint, that we can really suck at doing pest control. If we're good at interacting with humans, we can kind of polish some of that stuff up and figure it out over time. But with employees, I think that's where there's a big miss is people either want to hire a tech that's been somewhere before, and now they have to untrain that guy and convince them of the ways they have. So there's that frustration, or they have to train, or they have to hire somebody that these really good soft skills, and they dive so deep into the technical side of things and kind of split hairs and measure people in a way that's not fair to them as a new.
Right.
Like my goal for people when they first come and work here, for the first 30 days, like we want them to feel as comfortable as possible.
Right.
Throughout that time. And by the end of that 30 days, our only goal is for them to feel confident and have proficiency in like 70 to 80% of the things that they're going to be doing every single day. Right? We can fill in the gaps there, right?
Right.
That's a much smaller percent, but for whatever reason, people get stuck in that smaller percent, and then it gets in the way of the 70 to 80% that really
Right.
moves it for a company.
Yeah, this is where I've focused on my people is get it, because I realized, you know, they're never going to be, I mean, like half of the stuff I don't even train on because I realize it has absolutely no value to them and their performance. It's a head thing that it's nice to know, you know, that, you know, female cockroaches, you know, only need to mate once, you know, but in this control aspect of it, I'd rather they put the bait in the right place.
Yeah.
And that's what I really, if they get the bait, if they follow my protocol and they get that bait in the right place, and I'm a bait, you know, weight guy,
And
you know,
so
that's more important to me than,
so from like to flip like how it sounds like you're training your people on end. Like we don't talk technical at all with people. We only talk customer experience. So that's
Right.
what our business is. So for the first 30 to 60 days, like they'll get some of the service side of things, but at the end of the day, like you can read the label. It's like I hired you and I know that you can read, so you can figure that out. And as long as you interact with the customer at a really high level, you're going to learn that stuff over the course of the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months you're here. And that's okay.
right.
Like that's what a lot of these really big companies do because they don't have 60 to 90 days training on.
Well, we don't. I mean, when I get a guy in there, I'm usually running with him, but that is high for me on my, what you just mentioned is that because even my technicians will say, man, you know, your customers, like you don't do it the way Frank did it. And you didn't communicate like he did. And because I'm big on the communication, I tend to over communicate with the client. So every step of the way the client feels comfortable. Mostly I deal with women. It's like, you know, that's one of a big thing is they're home and they got to feel comfortable with that tech in the house. If they're not, it's never, I don't care how good he is, you know, the customer's not going to feel good. He's going to fire us or get somebody else or ask for me to do it. So I've been worrying about that concept. Like you see, it's always what you didn't tell that client that bites you in the butt. Like,
Well, can I ask you a question really quick?
yeah.
So how do you handle that when you get a new tech in and customer calls because it's not how Frank did it or whatever it is? Like how do you as the owner handle that? Because I think that little interaction is incredibly important to.
Yeah. So since I've been out of the field, it's less and less because like I had one guy that worked with me. He's my cousin. He worked with me for almost a year, about 6 months. And then, you know, COVID hit and hours dropped a bit and he needed to make more money, had an opportunity to go make more money. And he left and I came back and one of my cousins, you know, he's not you, but she's been dealing with me from the inception and she's been a client for like 10 years. She had an experience with him. He's really good. He does care. But the communication is always because these guys tend to be a little introverted and they tend to be crabby. Where they don't want to talk to too many people. And it's like, but it's simple. Hey, listen, you know, I'm just going to go out the service. I'm done in here. And once I'm done, I'll lock up and I'll go unless you need to talk to me. And sometimes this simple thing of I made a top 10 list over the last, you know, complaints that customers have. It really comes down to about 10. You know, he didn't call us when he was on the way. He didn't knock on the door when he was here.
Share this list with me, by the way. I'd love to see this list.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, he didn't put the hose back. I said, these are the top 10 things that everybody always complains about, that if you just focus on this, that 1% is going to be insignificant when when you screw up. And so I learned to listen to that. Always the same complaint. I'm an operations guy. So if I hear 3 things keep happening, why does it keep happening 3 times if we've already gone through that? How many times are we going to pay tuition on that? So that's just my mentality. Is like, I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm schizo, man. It's like, I'm wanting to be this entrepreneur guy that goes out and he can sell his butt off. But if I do, man, what is that going to do to the organization? And can these guys handle it?
So maybe I'll throw this curveball at you. You ever think of hiring a CEO?
At one point I probably will. Yeah. I will have somebody who can execute better than me. And that's on the list. I mean, I've done that vision casting of where I want to see my organization and the CEO and, the CMO. But right now I'm still like the CMO. I mean, I'm hiring all the people to do the marketing now. We're getting into the LSA, we're getting into the ads, we're getting into the SEO, but I still have to manage these guys that are doing the workforce, because it's like, it isn't performing, or how is it supposed to be? So I literally have to oversee, but I'm not going to be like, I literally probably will work about 30 hours a week sometimes. And because I train one of my techs to sell. And I'm finding, what can I get off my plate as fast as possible, but I don't want to abdicate either, where I just assume that, I just threw it all out there. So that's why I'm hiring a sales guy to do phone sales, because we're primarily inbound. We really only have to go out about 1%, because I'm not into termite yet. I don't do wildlife. We don't have wildlife here in Miami. It's like a raccoon is swimming in my pool. That's the extent of our wildlife. So termite we're getting into, but I'm going to be doing that so I actually learn the process. But then I know which one of my techs can handle that already. And I'm going to be transitioning him and getting him off of some other stuff so that he can handle that. So yeah, I'm just finding ways now to just get stuff off my plate, to where I can, say where we want to go next. And that's been my thing right now but we're 4 people right now at this company.
So you mentioned say that you can go out and sell, but you're concerned about if you're going to be able to get the work done after the sales process is done. And that's kind of just what growth is. You just kind of make it happen, and that's gonna suck.
Yeah, like I'm building the 3rd van. Now I know I got to go out and sell, so I'm comfortable, because I'll just drop somebody in there, or for at least 1 month or 2, I'll be out in the field. And yeah,
a lot of it's like you run up to the team you have can't handle the amount of work you're doing anymore, and then you push just a little bit further, and then that's when you hire somebody.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the best process, because otherwise you're gonna, especially when you're getting started, otherwise you're not going to have enough work to pay that person.
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely. That's been, and we're always there, but we're so, like, the way I've hedged that is with pricing. I've played with pricing to where I hedge it at high price clients. But it also limits us to enter into new markets that we could opportunities. You're like this schizo guy, you're like, hey, squirrel, that's it. That's me, squirrel,
Pretty similar guy.
Yeah, so I'm losing opportunities, but at the same time, I said, no, let me err on more caution, because I already been down that road. I know what can happen. So like right now, one route is about 89, probably 80%, 90% he can't handle unless I improve the route density. So my next strategy is, let me improve the route density so that the north route can have more, because he's got more room on his plate. And I basically just run whatever an emergency stop here and there, or when I got to see a big client, because I sell everything over the phone. I don't sell anything. I mean, I just have to go. I just went to quote this probably $8,000 a year client. Those are the face-to-face that they want to meet. But for most, it's pretty transactional for us. It's not that I have to go, like I have to go and inspect for a termite job.
So,
I got it.
So one thing that I think is pretty important, that kind of came to mind as you're talking about that is like, so you're pretty set on your pricing, right? Being pretty high end, right? And that's, as business owners, we start to kind of set these places that we anchor our opinion to, or we kind of like stick our feet in the ground, right? And those, it's something that Seth and I talk about a lot, actually, is like those sacred cows, right? The things that like are there and they're firm and no one thinks about it or questions it, right? Because that decision was made and we're not making it again. But like something Phil and I talk about is like, why can't we make a different decision? Like we're in charge. Like maybe that cow just needs to get shot right in the head.
Oh, it's going to, because we're already there.
Again, I'm not speaking directly to you.
No, but you are, because I'm already there to where I say, okay, if I'm going to grow, I realize that I need to do, our pricing needs to be lower to, it's the diffusion of, innovation. I mean, your pricing has to drop so you can attract more clients. It's just a given. And we're at the point where that margin is healthy, where I've had these higher end clients who supported all of the growth and, do all this. But if I improve, our efficiency, then the price does go, and then we can, because I don't have this stigma of, well, we're the most high priced and we need to be there because that's our thing. It's been that's what funds our initial growth to a lot of the things we want to do, is these really high end clients.
Yeah, so understanding the client and all that's really important, but then understanding the avenues and channels by which you can get to that client is different. So you talked about density a little while ago. So like with those higher end clients, like what are the techniques or strategies that you're implementing to try to gain some more density in those areas? Because we target a very similar customer, right? We're high end on a lot of lakefront properties around here. A lot of our customers on Lake Minnetonka are multi-million-dollar second homes, right? They want to come and scoot around on Lake Minnetonka during 4th of July, and then they're never really here.
Right. Yeah. So we're the only way I can do it right now is with ads. I mean, we have to increase our ads, target those areas which everybody else is targeting. I mean, it's, we're 1.8 million people in Miami and 1,700 techs. There's 320 companies. When I did price analysis, I mean, we did price analysis over the last week, where we called 60 companies, get pricing where the marketing is at, all over those areas. And I was shocked at how low those prices are from all those companies that are targeting these high end areas.
You just ran a freaking survey experiment, dude. You should sell that information. Like that's a lot. Like that's really valuable.
Yeah.
One thing, and this is nothing against you, Franklin, so please don't feel like I'm talking to you, but one thing that I've made kind of a point to not do is really think about anything that any other competitor is doing. Like I really don't think about what anybody else is doing within my market. Like I'll learn from people outside of the market, but like I find a lot, like I've interacted with a lot of the same operators that probably follow you and other operators that you've interacted with. And what I see is like people spend a lot of time researching other people's businesses, like a lot. It's important if you're doing it with an intent like what you did, right? But I think there's a slippery slope that a lot of people fall into that are unlike you, Franklin, but they fall into, like, they start to have this jealousy that starts to build because they start to see, oh, this person's charging this much, or that company is crappy, and they start to like have this like ego battle rather than
that's not healthy. Yeah.
And like for me, like I'm trying to be an innovator, right? I'm trying to do the stuff that nobody's ever thought about and create waves, and trailblazing. And in order to do that, like it's hard to grab from within the industry and do that. Like
you can't. I mean, that's what I did when I started my business. We wanted to go eco-friendly, natural, and do IPM, and even all our suppliers and manufacturers said it can't be done. And we did it anyway. So, but that's why I'm still probably the single most expensive company. I mean, when I look at what we charge and look at what they charge, we're 3x. Yeah. So that does what I'm looking at is, okay, if we're going to enter this market and try to get, we're competing in reality against, so you can't sell 80%, switch it. I close 20% of the sales at being this, because people are, and this is why you see me go on the SEO rants, that you see me go on, but my SEO rants is because of the fact that I realize that I have a niche and a blue ocean strategy, and I have clients that are looking for that. I'm not trying to out there go find people. I'm making myself available so that I can be found everywhere, so they can find me, and they do. And they're willing to say, yeah, I have an immune deficiency problem. I don't want the chemicals in the home. Every company I call will spray the home. I says, we're the only company that has a zero spray service indoor. So when we're looking at that innovation, and that is because SEO works so well for me, is because I made sure they can find me. I am not trying to pump it all on ads or doing, the third party lead, because I have to answer that call and bid with an 80% of margin in order to get the job.
So so what you're doing is I think it's super cool, freaking A, dude. You're innovating to serve the customer.
Yeah. I mean, I know exactly who my customer is.
And that's what a lot of companies don't.
And I've always known it, and this is who we set out to be. And there's, and I said it, and I had this mindset that I said, I only care about that 1% that really wants that. Because I realized from selling for 30 years that I can sell a lot easier what somebody wants than what somebody needs. And somebody says, I want the eco-friendly, I want the natural, I want this. They already want it. It just comes down to whether they can really afford it. And can we make it, and can we work out a program for them that's affordable? But so I never went that route. What I'm doing now is saying, okay, roach service, and how are they doing it? How are we doing it? And can we bring that price down and still be profitable and enter these new markets? And that's where I've been like, yeah, if we get the route density and we look at the analytics, I said, yeah, it's still very highly profitable. We just got to be able to be within 7 minutes, not 30, not 28.
Exactly.
That's so it says, yeah, we can get that efficiency. We can still have our 15 to 20% margins, net gross after everything, knowing that 50%, and we're sticking around that 50% gross on the route. Sometimes a little bit less because I give more to the guys,
So everything you're doing is green and all that. Do you have anything that's not that?
No, we use facilities, and we use organic facilities IPM on every home. We treat it the same way. We don't spray baseboard spray. We don't even crack and crevice with chemical. We can solve everything with baits, and a lot of time when we're done, we can throw those stations away with the way we treat it. Now, exterior on the outside of the property, yes, we have to use the synthetic. You can't solve ant problems with natural, but like all of our shrubs are almost 99% natural. We develop a blend, and we can control disease and insects on plants 100% natural. We're 90+% that. On lawns, we're IPM. We use about 90% less water and 60% less chem. Because I worry about building the soil biology, but that client needs to be with me for 2 years. It is an instant. We build up the microbes in the soil, and we use less and less fungicide, to where we use 80% less fungicide than everybody else. So it's about the science of it is there, but you still have to. So our technician doesn't make one tank and sprays everybody with the same thing. We make 2 and 3 applications on a yard. We have a lawn tank, and we have a shrub tank, and we have a weed tank, and we don't spray weeds if they're not there. We don't mix it just to give them a little thing in the tank. If there's no disease, why are we applying a fungicide? That's our, so 99% of our clients, 97% of our clients don't experience a disease problem because we built them up over the last, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years that I've had them. So that's what we sell is we tell the client, listen, do you want a tank with everything when you don't have it? Or, you're concerned about how much chemical is in that yard? Because it is chemical intense, a lot of these yards, when we first take them on. And then our goal is to wean them off of it little by little, because we can build up that soil biology over time.
Yeah. So I don't think the customer even knows what they want until we tell them.
They just are like, are you natural? Are you organic? Yeah. And then I have to, as a salesperson, explain yes and no, and here's where we are and here's where we're not. So I have to do my job as a salesperson, because they'll want 100% organic for the home, and I said, no, you can't get it 100%.
So when someone asks that question, like what I train people to ask is like, so Mr. Customer, when you ask that question, are you asking because like you have a zero chemical policy within your home, or you have some type of immune deficiency in the home, or is there another reason you're asking that question? And kind of a lot, because really, like I found people kind of ask stuff like that because we spray pesticides, right? And they just want to know that we're not super sketchy. They want to know that we're going to do it in a manner that their kid's not going to be born with 3 feet or something. Right. Like that's where people's brains go, right? Yeah. So in order to not have people's brains keep going that way, we need to engage them in a way that like they're giving us more information, not the other way around. Because in the sales process, we can give a lot of information away, and really add stress and confusion to the customer. And we can just keep giving out info. And in reality, we're not, like, the customer didn't even ask us the question they wanted us to answer. They asked a question that they thought was the right one. They just don't know enough. So like getting back to kind of the feelings there and like really identifying what's important to a customer. 1, they're going to kill the stuff that's here. 2, they're going to make it really easy. 3, my kid's not going to be born with 3 feet. 4, like whatever those things are for your company, right? And then like build talk tracks and scripting around that, so that if it's not Franklin interacting with them, if it's somebody else, or if it's not Billy Bob and you got Jim Bob doing it this time, like they have the right dialogue with that customer to leave them feeling a way that makes them want to do business with you. Because when people start talking chemicals, like you get really like into some conversations that the customer is asking questions and they have absolutely no idea what they're even asking about, but now they have this new information.
That's 1% of the game for us. It's 80% of the time is we got a new puppy, we got a kid, and we just don't feel comfortable doing it the way our old guy used to do it, when he would come and spray the house with everything. So they did some research and they have questions. So what I address is, the reality is that 99% of the time, all the pests are outside trying to get in. Our job is to protect that air quality, the surfaces, that we don't contaminate it so the dog doesn't lick it and your kid is not getting on their hands. Outside, we use it. And so we address it and like, okay, cool. As long as I don't have it inside my house, I don't want it inside because now they've switched everything to organic products. Everything is changed because the new baby came in the house and the dog came in before they could care less. And then, so I do get that 1% of the time where I just had one. I get one probably maybe every 2 to 3 times a week where it's, listen, I have an immuno problem that I've had diagnosed. My doctor says I can't be around chemicals. Everything in my house is vinegar and, whatever. And, I need to know exactly what you're applying and how we do it. And, so basically, if you called me from a tier 3 lab, that's how we're going to deal with it. If you call us from a hospital surgical room, that's how we're going to deal with it. It's just, we use classic IPM, which nobody discusses. And I had to explain what that is, but it's like 1% of the time. Most of the time is, hey, here's how we do it and why, because I already know my competition. I know that they've been in the apartment and everybody's been spraying Termidor inside. This is just Miami. That's just the way it is. So those are the things that I gotta like know why we don't do it like this, and that's it. But yeah, scripting has been huge.
And like understanding like, so your that marketing is to a customer that is going to have a they're going to be more prone to those immuno things, right? If they have those search terms and stuff, and they're looking for that type of service, you're
Yeah.
going to come up, right? So I think where you're at, and maybe other operators that are in a similar boat to you, is like there's a greater percentage of consumers that don't search that. They search how to get bugs out of my house, or
Yeah.
you know,
Pest control is the #1 search term. That's the one everybody wants to rank for.
Yeah.
You know,
So like searching for those kind of long handle keywords, those like pretty much the Karen writing a sentence or two in the search bar.
it's a
like,
1%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to kind of make that next change, like have you thought about like running your sales process with that type of customer, the one who just wants the ants out of their house as fast as possible?
Oh, we do. It's that's been an increasing our game, you know, where we've lowered our prices over the years some to be able to attract more people. And yes, but for instance, in the Hispanic market, that's exactly it. 65% of my market is Hispanic. Okay. They could care less.
Right.
They're looking the search term. This is why I rank #1, and even around the country, because very few people are actually targeting the Hispanic market. But the search terms are, you know, much simpler. Like, you know, they're very like control de cucaracha. You know, I want roach control, and that's it. So that's what we're going to be basically targeting now with our new marketing is that. But I have to, in order to be profitable, I got to bring the cost down to attract that client, because they're comparing me to the top 10 in the market. The only value I have is that I say, okay, we can do it. You can get the eco-friendly at the same price as you're paying now for this. And that's where our value is, where we can do it just about, you know, I can compete with the top 10 in my market without a problem on price.
So have you ever thought of, so you're talking about service and price.
Right.
You ever thought about sales process and how that leads to?
All right. So talk to me about that.
So like, what's your job when a customer calls in and they need control de cucarachas in the, like, what are we trying to do as the?
I'm trying to get the sale.
Okay. So how do you think the customer is thinking?
He wants to get the price. But well, most of the time, I mean, when you deal with a Hispanic culture, it tends to be that mentality is, you know, what the first thing is, you know, I need the price to get rid of roaches. That's what comes out of their mouth. And my thing is to consult them first. I try to, you know, build value in what I'm doing. So I'm okay. Tell me how long this has been going on, what you've been experiencing, and they'll tell me the whole story. And, you know, and then, you know, why did you call our company, and this, and try to figure out. I'm just, a lot of times I'm just calling for pricing. I'm calling every company on Google, you know, 80% of the time. The other part is, okay, I got a dog and we don't want the chemical in the home. And I just, you know, but they realize it's always going to be more, you know, because of what, you know, natural, everybody has that expectation.
Yeah.
So my job is to make sure that they're comfortable in understanding what it is why we bring them peace of mind in the way we do it, and why they would be more comfortable going with us.
So what you just said, make them more comfortable. I think like that's kind of the goal. More comfort, less stress. Customers call us in a highly stressed state of mind, right?
Yep.
Holy crap, cockroaches, or holy crap, whatever it is, they could have prevented it, right? But it's too late. And now they have all this stress. So what do we try to do, guys?
Relieve the stress.
Remove the stress, right? The whole sales process is how do we get the, good job, Phil. How do we get the stress? Like, how do we get rid of it? And it's not by talking about a whole bunch of crap this customer's never heard about, right?
Right.
It's not by talking chemicals or asking questions like, do you have immunodeficiency? I'm like, I just got cockroaches over here. Why is this guy asking me about my history? Like stuff like that like it's important to the service, but at the end of the day, we're thinking in terms of us, right?
Right.
We're not really thinking in terms of that customer.
Right.
So flip that on the head and think about like that, like Amy, whoever calls you, like what are they actually thinking about, and then how do they feel as they're going through my process? Like when I say exclusion to our customers, like, does my customer even know what that means? No.
It's a technical, it's an industry term. Yeah.
But we in the industry, we think we're freaking smart when we say crap like that, right?
Yeah.
So we like to use words like that kind of elevate our prestige, but
Yeah.
that's a level of complexity that now we have to explain a word we just used to our customer to allow our sales process to flow. And instead of really understanding, hey, this customer found me because I got a good website. This customer already assumes I can kill the bug they have. They can trust me to be a certified guy, and that they're not going to screw me. So now from there, it's just a matter of building that trust a little more, getting all the information you and I need to do a service, which is really name, phone number,
Address.
email,
Yep.
address, credit card. After that, like once we have the info we need, credit cards at the end, by the way. Like once I have that info, like if I'm asking you questions, I kind of gain control of that conversation. So if you call in, spaz out for 60 seconds on the phone. Once you take a breath, I said, you know what, Mr. Franklin, you called the right company. We can definitely help you get that taken care of.
Right.
We take stuff like that all the time. Can I ask you a couple questions and then I can go ahead and get you a quote? Boom. Who's in control now? Me, not Martha asking random questions based off of the last conversation with the 5 other operators they have.
Yep.
Like, because that's where those weird questions go. How many bait stations do you put out? Do you really care if you don't have any bugs? No, they don't.
Right.
But they ask it because pest cowboys up the road just they talked about how many bait stations they use in their sales process. So now that's something they measure against. So just talking in terms of what the customer cares about. Can I trust them? Is this valuable? When are they coming out? And do I understand a little bit about what they're going to do? Enough to sign up for them to come out on Tuesday, whatever it is. But like most customers don't care about the stuff you and I want to talk about when they call in. They're pretty, people are selfish in general, right? So they just
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree that it's more about, like I said, most of the times I don't even get into those, like, unless they ask me what products we're using, like they really need to know because the doctor says I have a doctor and he needs to know. We have a link on our page and all the products are there, SDSs and everything. We just send them, look, here it is. That's the information you need to give to him. Most of the time they're mostly wanting for us to solve the problem, knowing that we're not just going to hose the house down with a chemical. That's a major thing. So when we get into that, consulting is usually, hey, do you have little, I usually ask, do you have little pets? Do you have little children? I said, well, let me tell you why, this is better for your family. And then we get into that.
So can I just devil's advocate this one?
Yeah.
You ever think like what the customer thinks when you ask that question?
Oh, no, nobody's ever like, nobody's like, oh, I'm glad you asked because we just got a little kid or a little dog. Or
let me tell you what my mom or dad would think, because they have kids that like run a pest and wildlife company, but they have absolutely no idea what's going on with it. Like,
right.
If my mom calls us trying to get a service and our CSR asks that question, she's worried about the dog in the backyard that's about to die. Even though we're asking it because like we're trying to prevent that from happening, like they don't think about that.
Mhm.
And maybe your market's different than ours, but in our market, if we ask that, red flags go off.
Oh, really? No, man. It's like,
well, and maybe just like,
what's funny? Because I always say this at a conference, like 90% of the time there's a dog and there's a little child and people just ask me, is that going to hurt the dog? Literally. Like, I don't know if you get this all the time, but 90% of the time there's a kid, a little toddler running around the floor and there's a dog and they ask me, is that going to hurt the dog? Nobody ever asks me about a child.
That's pretty typical. Yeah, it's
Messed
pretty.
up.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's normal? I thought it was just here, man. I'm like, what the hell
No.
wrong with people?
No, it's interesting, but like people kind of, and this is my experience in our market, like people seem to think the worst when you ask a question, not that you're asking it with the best intentions.
Right.
They think about it in terms of themselves. You gotta leave.
Yeah.
I have no idea what time it is. You
Well,
think you
It's
can
gonna be
talk.
about 5. Yeah, it's 5 already. Dang, we've been on for 2 hours.
Clock our time. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like,
gotta pick up my son
in terms
soon
of
too.
themselves. So
We'll wrap
like
it up here.
understanding how people think is pretty important. So I mean, I would challenge you to not ask that question until your technician gets there. Like what?
Not even bring it up. That's good.
I mean, you're gonna do the same shit anyway, Franklin. So like,
I mean, yeah, we're gonna. Our protocol is our protocol. We're gonna do it no matter what. I mean,
Right.
exactly. So, like
No.
by asking that question, we've now put more stress into the situation.
I just think about it this way. I think I don't ask questions. I don't bring up information that they're not already thinking about. So unless they're asking me about it, they're probably not thinking about it. So I'm not going to introduce that.
Right.
So as long as if I can streamline the conversation, they're asking me about specific things they're worried about. I'm just going to focus on that stuff, answer the question, get the tech to the house. We can get the tech there, and he can handle the minutia.
Yeah.
He can get.
No, I mean, that's where I'm focused more and more. Cause I mean, I switched from 10 years ago or more, where I do everything over the phone. We sell everything on the phone. We don't go there.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to see it before we quote it. No, we just,
No, we don't do that either with pest
we get the
control.
client, try to get the sale and,
Yeah,
close it and get the tech out there. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we sell it over the phone, and then they go out there and tailor the service to the client.
I know I'm going to get a ton of hate mail on that one. You can't sell over the phone.
Honestly, like the companies that are big
Sell over the phone. The only thing we don't sell over the phone is wildlife work, like
Right.
trapping and sealing up a house.
Right.
That we have to actually go see. That's different. But
Termites too?
Just starting to get those. So
Okay, got it.
done a half dozen termite jobs this year, but those are always inspect and sell. Like,
Yeah. That's it.
12 months ago, I didn't think.
I
we
mean,
had
I mean, our for lawn and garden, we don't have to go, and home we don't have to go.
we
any-
get a
any-
square footage. A lot of times, square footage for residential service. We
Yeah.
can quote that. We don't need to go.
That's it. That's all we do is, I sell it by the square foot and for the lawns and everything else. What did I miss, Matt? What am I missing, man, that I need to know?
There's so much
that-
more.
I know.
But,
You guys have been a ton of fun, by the way.
Questions.
no, we do. I don't think I answered any of your questions.
We don't do a good job. We start
No.
talking, and then it just kind of
I
does
know.
like a trail it off thing.
Now, this has been great, guys. This has been awesome. I really do appreciate you taking the time doing this.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Just,
at next meeting we go, I can actually talk to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, next one you're going to, are you going to be at the wildlife conference in Myrtle Beach or no?
No, I'm not gonna, because I don't do wildlife. I'm not interested in it right now. I'm probably gonna be more at Purdue. I'll probably run up to Purdue because I want to talk to Pete. Hopefully he's supposed to be on my show next week, Chopin.
Oh,
I'm supposed to get him. I'm trying to get all you smart guys on here because
I don't know why you brought
while
us
we're
on.
out here.
So, I mean, if there's any other questions you have, Franklin. or
no, we're
Greg,
good, man. I think
Yeah.
you've been very generous. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate this.
Thanks for having us
Thanks for
on.
having us. Appreciate
No,
it.
sweet, man. All right. So I'll have this on in a couple of weeks. I'll let you know.
All right, awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you, man. Have a great
Talk to you
one. Be
later.
blessed, man.